So on April 8th at 2:40 a.m., my monitoring system woke me up to tell me a bot was dead. The bot was not dead. The bot was fine. The bot had been fine all night, but the monitor decided otherwise, and it did the worst possible thing it could do at 2:40 a.m. It tried to fix a problem that didn't exist. The monitor decided otherwise. Ugh. So by the next morning, 3 days of community messages were gone. They silently dropped. Unrecoverable. The senders moved on. The context is gone forever. That's incident number one. And I'm going to walk you through that one. And I'm going to walk you through another incident number two, which happened a month later, costing another 8 days of community messages and taught me a much harder lesson about what monitoring actually is and what it isn't. So 11 days, 2 incidents, 1 pattern, and a fix that I think most builders running infrastructure right now have not yet internalized. Now here's what makes this story different from the usual postmortem you've seen. Nothing crashed, no process died, no exception surfaced. In both incidents, every dashboard was green. The system was running exactly as designed. And in both incidents, the design itself was the problem. So let me walk you through it. So the first incident happened in a community I'm building infrastructure for, right? So you have 400 people in a group chat. The bot's job is to listen, archive, and respond. Standard enough, right? The monitor's job is to wake me up if something breaks. Also standard. The way the monitor was written though, and this is where it gets interesting, was that it watched the logs. Now, if recent log activity showed the bot was processing messages, the monitor said it's alive. If the log was quiet though, then the monitor said, I don't know. Then it treated I don't know the same way it treated dead. It restarted the bot. So a community of 400 people at midnight on a weeknight will go silent for hours. That is not a failure, that is people sleeping. But to the monitor, silence and death looked identical. 3 days of queued messages people had sent while the platform was offline, waiting to be delivered, landed on a freshly restarted bot, and most of them went into the abyss. 2 bugs there. And I want to name them clearly because they show up in probably everybody's monitoring eventually. So, bug number 1. Activity is not the same signal as health. Did anything happen recently is a different question from are you alive right now? Most monitors I've seen, including most of the ones I've written, conflate these 2 questions. They watch the activity stream and infer the health. That works perfectly until the silence is the correct state, and then the monitor falls apart. Now, bug number 2. The unknown should never trigger a destructive action. The monitor had 3 states: alive, dead, unknown. It restarted on unknown. Acting destructively on not knowing is exactly how you create failure you were trying to prevent, right? So unknown means you don't know. The right response to not knowing is to find out, not to break things on the assumption that the worst case is true. So I fixed both, right? The monitor now stopped inferring from the logs. It started asking the system its actual state directly, and it stopped restarting on unknowns. Only confirm back signals trigger anything destructive now, right? Done. Halas. But closed. I thought we were good. No, we're not good. So here's why I have to introduce a hadith, because the hadith is the principle that matches what happened next. The Prophet ﷺ said, the believer is not stung from the same hole twice. Strong claim, right? The principle isn't about avoiding pain. It's about whether the lesson registered. I thought the lesson had registered, and it hadn't. Not fully at least, because there was a much deeper version of the same bug, and I hadn't found it yet. So a month later, between April 23rd and May 1st, 8 days, community messages stopped landing in our memory layer. We call it the open HIVs. It's where everything gets archived, where every single conversation goes for retrieval and personalizations later, right? For 8 days, open HIVs was empty while the bot reported itself as healthy. Now, how does a system report itself as healthy while it's silently failing? That's the question. And the answer is the lesson of this whole story. There were 3 failures, and I'm going to describe them as categories, not mechanisms, because the categories are the part that travels. The mechanisms are specific to my stack. The categories show up in everybody's stack, right? So failure number one, a dependency we built on top of self-updated in place. And the update wide one of the customizations, we had applied the customization at install time, not reapplied on every boot. The update came in, the customization went away, no error, no alerts, just a quiet path the system relied on, suddenly missing. Failure 2. A configuration default that was correct in our old environment was wrong in our new one. We had migrated. The default didn't update. The system started failing inserts. It logged the failure once and kept running. Failure number 3. A variable got renamed in the code, but the deployment config still had the old name. On startup, a feature gracefully disabled itself with a single line of console output. A redundant safety layer was off for an unknown number of days. Nothing crashed, just one log line nobody read. 3 different mechanisms, one pattern. Each one was a configuration assumption that was true once, then quietly stopped being true. The dependency self-updated. The runtime environment migrated. A variable got renamed, the system kept running, nothing crashed. The only signal that something was wrong was a downstream effect. Messages not landing in open hifs, which we weren't measuring. Same hole, different shape, but the same hole nonetheless. The April incident was a monitor inferring health from indirect signals. The May incident was a system trusting that things would keep working because they used to. Both reduced to the same root cause. We were verifying the wrong thing. So here's the meta fix. And this is the part where I want every builder who's running production infrastructure to internalize, because I don't think this is the default mental model. The temptation after 3 independent silent failures is to add 3 independent monitors, right? So you validate the dependency on every boot, or the database connections on every insert, or you have your environment variable on every startup. And that's how you build a sprawling validation layer that it's on ongoing maintenance burden that misses the 4th, that misses the 5th, that misses the 6th assumption that you never thought to validate. Now, the cleaner answer is to validate the outcome the system is supposed to produce. So for us, the outcome is messages from active community groups land in open hifs. Not is the dependency healthy, not is the connection up, not is the variable defined, just are messages landing. If the answer is yes, every layer between the platform and disk is working, regardless of which specific mechanism made it work. If the answer is no, something's broken, regardless of which specific layer is broken. So one signal, one question, and one outcome. So we added one periodic check that asks exactly that question. It would have caught all 3 of the May silent failures in under a day. So more importantly, it will catch the failures we haven't anticipated yet because it's measuring the outcome, not the configuration. So the outcome is the part you actually care about. Everything else is plumbing. Now the threshold here matters. The first version of the check fired during a normal overnight quiet window. We had to bump it after looking at the actual data because daily volume in this group ranges from very low to dozens, which means long silences are normal. Calibration is part of the design. It's not something you do at the end. If your monitor cries wolf in the first week, nobody trusts it in the second, right? So now, why does this matter beyond my one incident? Because the same pattern shows up everywhere, right? Anywhere you're verifying the configs of a system, right? So is the service running? Is the dependency installed? Is the variable set? You're verifying things that can be true while the actual work is silently failing. Anywhere you're trying to verify the outcome, so is the work getting done? For example, you're verifying the part that actually matters to your users. So for builders working on community infrastructure, this is asymmetric. A consumer app drops a notification, the user reopens the app, a community message archive drops a message, that conversation is gone. The senders have moved on. The context is unrecoverable. People are trusting the system with conversations that matter to them, and the standard for the system is working cannot be nothing has crashed. The standard has to be the work the system exists to do is actually getting done. That standard requires verification at the outcome level, repeatedly, automatically, not as a one-time spec check, not as a deploy gate, as a continuous question the system asks itself. So if you're building something similar, right? A community bot, a memory archive, a digest job, a payment ledger, anything where the cost of silent failure is asymmetric, let me leave you with five things. Four, maybe five things. One, identify the outcome the system exists to produce. Not is the service running, is the work getting done. Number two, build a single outcome monitor before you build a constellation of component monitors. One signal beats 15. Number three, calibrate against real historical data. The threshold matters more than the monitor. Cry wolf once, lose the trust forever. Number four, make unknown a no op, not a trigger. If a check can return unknown, do not let unknown trigger restart. Require a confirm bad signal. Number five, you persist the runtime state your system learns. So if a restart costs you weeks of accumulated context, your persistence layer is wrong. Restarts should be cheap. And I want to close with this. There's a category of infrastructure failure that only reveals itself at 3 a.m., right? In silence, after the damage is done. There's a worse category that reveals itself 8 days later when something else breaks and surfaces what was quietly accumulating underneath. The first one is a bug. The second one is a question about whether you've built a system to answer the right question. Is it actually working? Or just, is it running? The believer is not stung from the same hole twice. We almost were. The fix wasn't more monitoring, it was the right monitoring at the outcome layer where reality lives. So don't watch the configurations, watch the work. If you're building AI agents for communities or you want to talk through the architecture before you hit any of this in production, the link is in the description. And the full write-up is on my Substack. I'd rather you learn from our 11 days than your own.